They're everywhere. On the shirts people wear, the jewelry they choose, the posters taped on their bedroom walls. Symbols. Most people treat them like harmless decoration, cool shapes, stylish patterns, aesthetic designs. But throughout history, symbols have carried weight, meaning, power. Entire belief systems have been built on the backs of symbols, and sometimes the wrong ones invite things you don't fully understand. Even C.S. Lewis, yes, the same man who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, once warned that the smallest symbolic acts can be spiritual footholds, that evil often creeps in, not through open rebellion, but through small, subtle permissions. And that's the unsettling part, because many of these symbols are tied not to harmless traditions, but to witchcraft, an ancient practice that still thrives quietly today. Some witches believe these marks are like beacons. They light up people who carry them, pulling witches toward them like moths to flame. Most people who display these symbols have no idea what they mean, but witches, they see them, they recognize the call, and they respond. So today, we're going to peel back the curtain. We're going to look at 10 everyday symbols, some obvious, some hidden, in plain sight, that are said to attract witches into your life. As you watch, look around your own world, your home, your clothes, your belongings. You might just realize you've been carrying a quiet invitation and never even knew it. Let's begin. 1. The pentagram, the most infamous of them all, the pentagram. 5 points. One continuous line. A star, perfectly enclosed within itself. At first glance, it looks harmless, almost childlike. People draw it in notebooks, hang it as wall art, or wear it on rings and band merch. But to witches, it's one of the oldest and most powerful magical symbols still in use today. Each point of the pentagram represents an element: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, the 5 forces witches believe make up all of existence. When enclosed in a circle, it's said to form a sacred boundary that holds energy, protecting what's inside and repelling outside forces. In ceremonial magic, witches and occultists have used it for centuries to summon, banish, and command spiritual entities. Even its orientation changes its meaning. When upright, it symbolizes harmony and control of spirit over matter. When inverted 2 points up, its meaning darkens. Many see it as representing the horns of Baphomet, a goat-headed deity often tied to satanic lore and left-hand path magic. That inversion is said to flip the energy, turning protection into provocation. During medieval times, wearing a pentagram signaled you were an initiate of hidden arts. And even now, many modern Wiccans wear it as a declaration of allegiance to the craft, believing it strengthens their aura and shields them from harm. Here's the chilling part. Witches often believe that someone wearing or displaying a pentagram has already opened the door, that they're spiritually visible, like a lighthouse cutting through fog. So when you see it on jewelry, at mall kiosks, tattooed on skin, or stamped on a t-shirt, remember, to witches, it's not just decoration. It's a beacon, and they're watching who carries it. 2. The crescent moon. Soft, beautiful, romantic. That's how most people see the crescent moon, a sliver of silver light in the darkness, calm and comforting. But witches see something else entirely. The crescent moon has been tied to goddess worship for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks saw it in Selene, the luminous goddess who rode her silver chariot across the night sky. The Romans revered Diana, the huntress who embodied the wild, untamed spirit of nature. And in witchcraft, the crescent belongs to Hecate, the goddess of magic, crossroads, and the shadow spaces between worlds. To witches, the crescent moon is more than just a phase of the lunar cycle. It's a portal, a gateway into feminine energy, intuition, and spiritual power. It marks the waxing phase, when the moon grows stronger night by night, and when spells for growth, attraction, and manifestation are believed to be most effective. Witches often time their rituals to match the moon's rhythm, casting spells as it waxes, releasing energy as it wanes. To them, this isn't superstition, it's synchronization with the cosmic heartbeat. That's why the crescent shows up everywhere in witchcraft, on altars, in spellbooks, carved into ritual tools. And that's why they notice it when it appears on someone else, a necklace, a pair of earrings, a phone case, because to witches, seeing someone wear crescent moon suggests something. That person may be intuitively in tune with lunar magic, even if they've never practiced a spell in their life. You'll notice something. Witches rarely ignore lunar symbols. They're like coded signals, an unspoken language. To you, it's just jewelry. To them, it's a quiet whisper. I believe, even if I don't know it yet. 3. Black cats. Everyone knows black cats have a reputation. Unlucky, mysterious, spooky. They slink through shadows, eyes glowing like tiny lanterns. People cross the street to avoid them or joke about bad luck if one happens to cross their path. But witches, they see black cats in an entirely different light. To witches, black cats are not omens of misfortune, they're allies. For centuries, black cats were believed to be witches' familiars, spiritual companions that assisted with spell work, carried messages between realms, and guarded their human counterparts. In medieval Europe, this belief was so strong that simply owning a black cat could get someone accused of witchcraft and often condemned for it. Witches are drawn to black cats because they're thought to walk between worlds, half in the physical, half in the spiritual. They move like smoke, silent and calculating, yet fiercely protective. Legends claim they can sense spirits, slip through magical barriers, and even absorb curses meant for their masters. And here's where it gets unsettling. Having black cat imagery around your home, statues, paintings, plush toys, even stickers is often seen as laying out a welcome mat. In witchcraft circles, this signals that you're comfortable with the presence of witches and their companions. It might seem harmless, even cute, but to witches, black cats aren't mascots. They're guardians, sacred protectors, the watchful eyes of the unseen. And witches notice who keeps their image close, because to them, no one surrounds themselves with black cats by accident. It's either a sign you're protected or a sign you're ready to be. Either way, once witches see the black cat watching over you, they often take it as a sign you've already opened the door. 4. The triquetra, Celtic Trinity knot. Is just a pretty Celtic knot, or is it? The triquetra is one of those symbols that hides in plain sight. Most people see its looping arcs and think of it as nothing more than ancient decoration, a stylish emblem from old Irish art. But beneath its elegant curves lies a history drenched in mysticism, magic, and belief. Long before Christianity ever touched the shores of Europe, the triquetra was sacred to ancient pagan and druidic cultures. It's an endless knot made of 3 interwoven points with no beginning and no end. To those early cultures, it represented the threefold nature of existence: birth, death, and rebirth, the eternal cycle that governs every living thing. But its meaning didn't stop there. It also symbolized the unity of body, mind, and spirit, the 3 forces they believed made up a complete soul. And for witches, it embodies one of their most powerful archetypes, the triple goddess. Maiden, mother, crone, 3 faces of the divine feminine, representing youth and beginnings, maturity and creation, and finally, wisdom and death. To witches, these 3 forms are not just poetic metaphors. They are living currents of magical energy, shifting with the moon's phases and guiding the balance of life. The triquetra is seen as the sacred seal that binds them together. When Christianity spread through Europe, the symbol was absorbed and repurposed as a representation of the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Churches carved it into stone, monks painted it in illuminated manuscripts, but that didn't erase its older meaning. If anything, it added layers like 2 worlds sharing the same mask. Today, you see the triquetra everywhere, on jewelry, tattoos, book covers, TV shows about witches and the occult. People adopt it because it looks beautiful, never realizing it's basically a magical signature, an ancient emblem that still whispers to those attuned to it. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Witches often believe that those who display the triquetra are already marked, that fate has chosen them, or that on some subconscious level, they've chosen themselves. To them, it's not coincidence, it's calling. If a witch sees you wearing one, they may quietly assume you've already chosen a side, that you've already stepped 1 foot onto the path, even if you don't know it yet. Because to witches, the triquetra isn't just a symbol, it's a seal, a vow. And once you carry it, they believe the old powers might begin watching you a little closer, just waiting for the day you finally notice them staring back. 5. Spirals, labyrinth, patterns. You see them everywhere, carved into ancient stones, etched into cathedral floors, woven into art, architecture, even casually doodled in the corners of notebooks. Spirals, to most people, they're just pretty patterns, pleasing shapes that draw the eye. But to ancient pagan and druidic cultures, the spiral was sacred. It represented the soul's journey, inward toward the spiritual core, and outward toward the cosmic whole. It symbolized growth, transformation, and the eternal rhythm of life and death. Witches see spirals as maps, literal blueprints for spiritual travel. They use spiral labyrinths in meditation and ritual to slip into trance states, connect with spirit guides, or journey between realms. The slow, winding path of the spiral is believed to quiet the conscious mind and awaken the subconscious, opening doorways that normally stay shut. Here's the catch. The spiral is everywhere in nature. On shells, ferns, sunflowers, hurricanes, even galaxies. It's built into the bones of the universe itself. And that's why it goes unnoticed. It hides in plain sight. To witches, a person who surrounds themselves with spiral designs is never doing it by accident. They often interpret it as a sign that person is already sensitive to energy, attuned to the flow, even if they don't realize it. And to witches, that sensitivity makes someone ideal to approach, influence, or quietly recruit. To everyone else, it's just a pretty pattern. But witches know better, because spirals don't just decorate. They call, and some people without even knowing, answer. 6. Crystal pendulums. A crystal on a chain, simple, elegant, harmless, right? Not to witches. Pendulums are one of the oldest and most trusted tools in divination. To the untrained eye, it's just a pretty stone swaying on a chain. But to witches, it's a spiritual compass, a way to pierce the veil between the physical and the unseen. They use pendulums to communicate with spirits, detect subtle energy fields, and receive answers from their subconscious minds. The principle is deceptively simple. The witch asks a yes or no question, holds the pendulum still, and watches how it moves. A swing in one direction might mean yes, another direction means no. Some believe it's the spirit world nudging the stone. Others believe it's the witch's own higher self answering through micro movements too small to consciously control. To witches, this isn't guessing, it's guidance. Many people today wear crystal pendants purely for healing energy or aesthetic, never realizing what they're signaling. Because in witchcraft, wearing or displaying a crystal pendulum is more than fashion. It's like hanging a sign that says, I'm receptive. And that makes witches notice. They often see someone wearing a pendulum as a human antenna, a person whose energy is open, porous, and easier to influence. Some witches might even subtly test your aura, watching how you react in conversation, or sensing the vibe you give off. Because in their worldview, no one wears a pendulum by accident. It's either a tool or an invitation. And once they see it on you, witches rarely assume it's just jewelry. They assume you've already opened the door, and you might not even realize who's standing on the other side. Our 7, broomsticks. A broom by the door. To you, it's just cleaning supplies. To witches, it's ancient magic. The image of a witch riding a broomstick through the night sky has become so familiar that it almost feels cartoonish now, like something from a Halloween decoration. But the truth is, witches never believed brooms could actually fly. The real history of the broom, or besom as it's traditionally called, is far older and far more spiritual. In ancient European folk traditions, the besom was considered a sacred tool. Witches used it not for sweeping dust, but for sweeping away energy. Before any ritual or spell, they would take a broom and sweep the ground in a circle, not physically touching the earth, but moving it just above the surface, symbolically clearing out negative forces and preparing the space for sacred work. This act was called sweeping the circle. It was believed to purify the area, pushing away any lingering spirits, curses, or emotional residue that might interfere with their magic. Only when the circle was clean could true spell work begin. Over time, the besom became known as a guardian tool. Witches would leave their brooms by the doorway or lay them across the threshold as a protective barrier. The belief was that no evil spirit could cross a broom placed across an entrance. It became the silent sentinel of a witch's home, always watching, always warding. Even today, this tradition continues. Many modern witches place small decorative brooms, sometimes no bigger than a pencil, above their doors or on their walls. They believe the broom keeps out harmful energy and invites benevolent spirits and magical allies to enter. It marks the space as spiritually protected and spiritually active. Here's the unsettling part. Most people who buy these miniature brooms have no idea what they're stepping into. They might pick them up at antique stores or home decor shops, thinking they're just rustic farmhouse accents. They see them as cozy, charming, harmless, but witches see them as something entirely different. If a witch visits a home and spots a decorative broom over the doorway, they often interpret it as a sign, a signal that the space welcomes witch energy, that whoever lives there might already be open to spiritual forces, even if they don't consciously realize it. In witchcraft circles, the besom isn't just decor, it's a declaration, and that's what makes it so quietly powerful, because in their eyes, anyone who keeps a broom displayed is doing more than decorating. They're marking their home as sacred ground. They're calling something ancient. And once that call is made, something usually answers. 8. The number 13. Unlucky? Maybe. But in witchcraft, the number 13 is sacred. For most people, the number 13 carries a heavy reputation. It's a number hotels skip when labeling their floors. The seat airlines avoid. The day Friday the 13th people joke about but quietly dread. We grow up surrounded by the idea that 13 is cursed, that it invites misfortune, chaos, or death. But witches see something very different. In witchcraft, 13 has long been considered a number of power. There are 13 lunar cycles in a year, 13 full moons that rise and fall like a heartbeat pulsing through the seasons. Witches align much of their ritual calendar with the moon, and so 13 marks a complete cycle of magical energy. Birth, growth, decay, and rebirth all contained within that sacred count. Historically, many covens were said to consist of 13 members, 12 practitioners, and one high priestess or high priest to lead them. 13 wasn't random, it was balance, a full circle, a complete unit. Even in modern Wicca and neo-pagan groups, the number 13 still carries this sense of wholeness and ancient legitimacy. But here's where it becomes unsettling. Because while most of society fears 13, witches are drawn to it. They see embracing 13 as an act of defiance, a refusal to bow to superstition. And that defiance, in their eyes, is empowering. To them, rejecting collective fear gives you strength. It marks you as someone who walks your own path, even if that path leads straight through the shadows. That's why witches often notice when people casually display 13 on shirts, jewelry, tattoos, usernames, even home decor. They interpret it as a signal. This person is unafraid of taboo. They're willing to touch what others avoid. And to witches, that courage is magnetic, because in their worldview, magic requires bravery. The bravery to cross lines, to step into the unknown, to touch the forbidden and return with power in your hands. So when someone surrounds themselves with the number 13, witches often believe that person is already halfway there, already marked as someone who could walk the path, if they choose. To you, it might just be a number, but to them, it's a signpost, a symbol that says, I am not afraid. And for witches, fearlessness is rare and very, very attractive. 9. Witches' sigils. These are the hidden ones, the ones you don't recognize at first. Sigils are personal magical symbols, custom designed to represent specific desires, intentions, or spirits. Witches draw them in ritual to manifest outcomes. Unlike pentagrams, sigils aren't universal. They're unique, almost like magical passwords. They've bled into modern pop culture as edgy symbols on clothing or tattoos. But witches see them as charged, alive. If you display a sigil without knowing what it means, you could be wearing someone else's spell still active. And witches notice that, because to them, seeing a sigil is like finding a note left in an ancient language. They know someone wrote it and they want to know who. 10. Ouija boards. And finally, the most dangerous symbol of all. The Ouija board is more than a game. It's a communication device created in the 1800s to contact the dead. Witches, mediums, and occultists have used it for decades to open channels to the spirit world. Even if you never touch it, just displaying a Ouija board as wall art, a coaster, even a shirt print is seen by many witches as opening a door. Because in their worldview, the spirit world is always listening, and the board is the invitation. You may think it's ironic decor, but to witches, it means one thing. You're willing to talk, and something might talk back. Symbols are more than decoration. They're languages. They're keys. Witches don't see them as harmless designs. They see them as energetic signals, beacons glowing in the dark. And maybe they're right, because throughout history, belief has given these shapes power. The more people believe in them, the more alive they seem to become. Most people surround themselves with symbols without thinking twice. But witches, they look for them. They follow them. Because in their eyes, symbols aren't chosen by accident. They're chosen by destiny. So next time you see one of these symbols around your home, ask yourself, did I choose it or did it choose me? Because maybe, just maybe, they're not just symbols. They're invitations.